Okay, it's 1:03 p.m. We will begin this work session of Lake County Board of County Commissioners. We are going through budget overviews and department goals, starting with the Sheriff's Department. This will be led by Lake County Sheriff Heath Speckman.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
I think are we gonna pull a slideshow up?
Do you want?
Yeah, sure. You just click it.
Yeah. Here you go.
Okay, great. Do that. Alright, I'll jump right in. I've appreciated the process and it's been fun to kind of go back and touch on these and just for a progress report internally too, because it's easy to forget some of the bigger goals that we've set, so it's been a good process so far. So jump right into an update where we're at with our short-term goals. The first one we've identified is retention and trying to keep staff members. And a couple things that we've tried that seems to be working fairly well. First, I'll start off with this pathway program idea that we've developed, and that's where we can use current staff members to grow into different positions. So it's been nice to have all these different elements of the sheriff's office that is really unique from a law enforcement standpoint compared to like a police department. So there's a lot of additional requirements for us to follow through with. And so we're able to hire people right out of high school really into the sheriff's office, and if they have a desire to pursue law enforcement. We have currently 3 examples. One has recently graduated the Post Academy. This person started in court security, went into detention, and then to the Post Academy, and now is in patrol in our FTO program. And so we've had this nice growth with that person internally. The other example is currently at the Post Academy right now. Another example is starting in detentions. And then the other one is really, to me, the ideal example of right out of high school, wanted to get into law enforcement, still a little too young to get into the post-certified world. So she started off in dispatch. Dispatch is a great starting point to see if this is something I really want, because you are dealing with first-hand emergencies, real-life emergencies. Then went into detention, so we're able to now start training in arrest control, firearms, getting a uniform, dealing with folks that are freshly arrested, and just to really see that firsthand. And so now she's applying to go to Post Academy and will turn 21 during that academy, and has been employed here for multiple years now. And so that's addressing some of those retention hopefuls. We, instead of just hiring somebody right off the bat into patrol, they're gaining a little more experience and a little more buy into the program that they want to pursue. So it's been really helpful to try to just promote basically internally with that.
Post is like law enforcement training.
Correct, yeah, so that's where you get your certification through the state to be a certified law enforcement officer where you can effect arrest. And so currently we're sending people down to El Paso County. Their sheriff's office down there leads a 6-month academy, so it's a little longer than the local option at CMC, and so that's worked out pretty well. We have a new evaluation process that's very centered on the employee and their goals, and so that way the supervisors can work with their employee on what their career progression looks like, and that's also been helpful in our retention goals. We do have an incentive program where we incentivize people to go out and further their education and to gain training certificates so they can come back and train our staff in driving and firearms and arrest control, some of these mandatory things that we have to keep up with. And so we're trying to encourage people to offer more, and by offering more to us, we pay more. And so that's worked out fairly well too. And really it's all pointing towards internal growth, and that's what we're shooting for. Let's see. Next one, moving on to our strategic planning. Looking at our long-term budgeting process, worked closely with our finance team here, but also internally, and really trying to build out what our 5-year plan looks like from a staffing standpoint. That's the big ticket item, obviously, for budgeting, so we put a lot of focus into that so we can see what the 5-year lookout looks like. And with other expenses, we're dialing that in better, and we're able to give more of like a 1 to 3 year lookout of what our expenses looks like. And so it's been good, both working internally, working with our finance assistant at the sheriff's office, and then also with the county. So we are addressing that one, and it's improving. Still haven't hit what we hope to find from a stability standpoint, where it's just year after year we're able to look back, look forward, and but we're getting closer. The look back aspect of that was difficult initially because we didn't have really solid numbers to examine. Then beginning the accreditation process through CALIA, since hiring our ops support director, she's taken the lead on that and communicating with CALIA on what that would take for our office. So that has started, and that's part of our long-term goals too, that I'll talk a little more on. So working with the community partners, this is something that I realize is not really a short-term goal, it's a long-term goal that we need to constantly work on. Currently, our closest partnership right now has been with the schools and working through developing the SRO program and getting some enhanced safety for our students in our local schools. We also work with some of the local medical folks, specifically Dr. Lisa is able to offer some assistance to our jails. So we can, if we have somebody who's recently brought into custody and they're on medication, we can work with somebody locally to make sure that they have what they need, we understand how to use it, and that just reduces the amount of transportation that we have to carry out. And then just a little outside the community too, there's been some great collaboration with other sheriff's office, other law enforcement agencies across the state. Our administrative staff reaches out to Boulder County often to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. They share their systems with us, and we're able to make sure we're offering the best services possible, especially on the administrative side. We're good at attending conferences. It's been so great to go. I'm sure you guys have been to conferences and just to expand your network, learn new things, new practices, and keep up with that. I enjoy the relationship with our surrounding counties. I meet with 5 different county sheriffs pretty much quarterly, and the biggest relationship we have with Chaffee County and the housing of our inmates down there and keeping that relationship solid is really paying off, and it seems like it's a win-win situation. Update on our wellness program. Initially we had our a local therapist, Becca, that's been great. She continues to offer good services. She's been great. Recently we had a pretty traumatic call that we had to respond to with joint agencies, and so we brought her in to do a joint agency debrief. We met with fire, EMS, and law enforcement. We all joined, and she led us through a debriefing of that situation where we're not really focused on tactics. And it's easy for us to be like, well, you should have went to the left and I went to the right, and it's more of like, okay, what was the call? What did you expect to happen? What did actually happen? And so she leads us through that. She's really good at it. But we have enhanced that recently, just to offer other options for people. So the undersheriff and I both, coming from the state patrol, we were familiar with Dr. Libby Palmer is her name, and she's a therapist now that used to be a law enforcement officer, so she speaks the language a little better, and sometimes that's what officers are looking for. They want somebody they can relate to and be like, oh, you used to be a detective, you went to 10 homicides in your first year, and we understand each other. So offering that, I'm hoping that more people will utilize it. Cops are tough nut to crack when it comes to this. Hey, talk about your feelings. No thanks, I'm good. Is the common response. So we're just trying to offer different resources and making sure we're addressing that. We're also exploring some software that we can use internally to hopefully track, okay, this deputy has been to so many of these types of calls, maybe we're a little more proactive in addressing some potential issues before they blow up, which is, I would say, the common response is we get people can't handle it anymore. So it's been super challenging, but we have some professionals we're working with now, and that program is growing, so I'm excited on that update. So this last one for short term is just the outreach programs. One thing that we have done routinely year after year is the National Night Out. It's a nationwide event. All happens on the same day. It doesn't work for us, so we've rescheduled it because it happens like in August, which is just way too crazy for Leadville to have another event in August.
What are we doing in August?
Oh, what's that?
No.
Oh, yeah. So welcome to Lake County in August. Yeah, so we pushed that out, and it's been really good. We've had quite the turnout, those events. It's just great to get the kids out there too, and just to interact with us, hang out. We had the advocates out there this last year, and then the other first responders. It is a law enforcement specific event. However, we're such a small community, we invite all first responders. And to be honest, the kids like the fire trucks more than the police cars.
Yeah,
Very
they have more
humble.
flashing lights.
Very humble.
Lots of flashing lights at those events.
Exactly. And what's really cool too is we also have a few staff members that coach kids in different sports, and so they're able to reach out. And good news is we have a couple of our advocates teach youth soccer. They're 5-1, I heard this morning, so they're doing pretty well.
Huge.
So we can move on to.
Hey Candace, can I have the mouse? Just a second.
Any questions on our short-term goals before moving on to long-term?
No questions from me.
Inter's not working.
Is that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think you had the arrow too there.
Okay. Cool.
I don't know why it's being weird.
But, so to jump into the long-term goals, what I wanna speak on in this first portion here is our minimum staffing levels. This dates back to when I was appointed in 2022, trying to learn what was going on, learn our call volume, learn what's necessary for law enforcement, and then to build that into a 4-year build plan of increasing our staff to the level that's appropriate for our community. And I know we've talked about this a couple times, so we don't have to dive too deep into it, but next year concludes the last year of my first term. And so next year does represent kind of an important year for me, as we've worked hard to try to figure out what is the appropriate level for Lake County as our minimum staffing. And initially the number was too large to say, okay, in 2023, this is how many we'll get. And as we've discussed a little bit about how long it takes to get somebody trained up and ready for these positions, it was really unrealistic. And so the goal was to let's spread this out over the next 4 years. And so 2026 represents building us to that point. And so I'm hopeful. It's gonna be a lot to work through, finishing this year up and finishing next year up and going through the hiring process and getting the right people in the right places. But the number's not so out of question that I don't think it's, that I do think it's possible. And so that's what we're looking for, long-term wise, so it continues to be a long-term goal. And then we're always gonna have turnover here. It's just something that I'm hopeful to keep everybody forever, but I know that's not realistic. And so once we get into the end of 2026, rolling into 2027, is just to maintain that as best as possible. So having good communication with staff, knowing so-and-so wants to go to the FBI at some point, we're prepared for that, and how do we replace that person without hitting some really big slumps in our staffing level. So we are on track for that one. For some current numbers, we do have 30 staff members as of this coming Monday. That'll put us at still 6 vacancies for this year. However, we have about 4 or 5 in the pipeline to fill some of those roles for this year. So if we get those through, then we still may have a couple left over by the end of the year. And then next year, we're hoping for 5 more positions, mainly focused on patrol. Patrol seems to be the down point right now, and they're the busiest answering calls for service. So it's important we get to those numbers. For our efforts towards behavioral health and substance abuse, we do see that this is a large impact to our community and to the justice system and in law enforcement. What was present before was the co-responder program, and the co-responder program was housed under Sil Vista. They lost that grant, and so we tried to apply for it, and unfortunately we didn't get that grant. So we did communicate with them to say why, try to learn how to improve that for next time. I do see this once, kind of going in order here is getting to minimum staffing so we can answer the call for service that our community expects from us, to make sure that we're focusing on answering, crime that's in our community. And then from there is, how do we really address that? And if this is a big part of it, we need to make sure that we're, putting effort towards that early on. And that way, when we can answer those basic calls for service, we can also start addressing, any behavioral health or substance abuse issues in our community. The model used right now is still the co-responder program. Summit County has a good example with their SMART team. Chaffey County's building theirs, they were awarded the grant. And so they have good people in good places doing good things there. So we do have some local examples that what's really nice about that is they touch our county lines. And so we are dealing with a lot of the same people. I can go down to the Chaffey Sheriff or the Summit Sheriff and mention a couple names, they're like, yeah, we know too. And here's what's been some of our success. So we'll continue to pursue that, but it is a long-term goal because funding, grants, getting people up here, Sylvisto struggled with it. Just in my short time here, I've seen 2 different co-responders, and it's just hard to get people up here. And it's hard to keep people up here, especially with the level of education that's required for those positions. It is hard.
Could you elaborate a little bit on what a co-responder
Yes,
does?
of course, yeah. And so they're joined with law enforcement often, and if we get a call, somebody calls our dispatch center saying, hey, I got so-and-so's yelling and shouting and they're becoming an issue. We need law enforcement to help before this escalates. And so that's our goal, is we get there and say, okay, there's no crime, there could potentially be a crime. And, okay, we've identified, maybe we know this person, maybe we don't, maybe we can identify that there maybe is a mental illness. Or maybe this person is just, out of their mind, high, drunk, or whatever. And a co-responder can come in as a non-law enforcement capacity in civilian clothes and hopefully try to talk the situation down. And then that way it doesn't develop into a crime. I will speak proudly of my staff, especially a couple of them are really good at doing that, but they still present the uniform, they still present the firearm, the handcuffs, just that look alone can escalate situations. But because we don't always have that co-responder here, staff has actually developed a really good ability to talk people down, to cool the situation. It's not always the case though, and so that's why it's good to have both, because this person's going in there unarmed and they're gonna do their best. However, if we have this person who's just not willing to cooperate with anybody on planet Earth in the moment, and there's violence is increasing, we need to have protection for that co-responder and those around. So that's why it kind of works good with law enforcement. And again, the program is developing across the country and in our state and in our local counties. So that's basically what co-responders do.
What did they say about why we didn't get the funding?
Some of it was what was written in the grant. We used our prior co-responder to really help push it. We thought we'd have the right language in there, but they just, the general feeling I got from their response was, I guess they weren't buying into how we're gonna use the program. So, I think there was just, too many, internet words used in there, not so much genuine explanation.
Like basically what you just explained to us.
Yeah,
Pretty
exactly.
much.
We can have that conversation, but especially with our need in our communities.
Yeah.
It's that it wasn't well written, not that we
Yeah.
actually, that our content was the issue.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Who's that grant from? Is that a state or a federal?
I don't recall off the top of my head. So, to touch back into how CALEA kind of joins both short-term and long-term goals, we need to start the process now, but it's also a long-term goal because, our first guidance we're given, it's gonna be about a 4-year process. It all depends on how much work. Why this is so important, this is also kind of touches the big term goals here, is CALEA is gonna come in and do a full examination of everything we do and how we do it, why we do it, what our policies and procedures looks like, what our staffing levels are, training, what does the evidence room look like, and what is our reporting process, and we have to meet their standards to get their accreditation. So this speaks to how we do things and into every level. And so when it comes to the big picture goal of building an agency that checks all the marks, is I wanna make sure that we have the appropriate amount of people to do the job and that they know how to do the job and that we have the right systems in place for them to do the job. And so that's what we're working towards, the staffing levels and working towards an accreditation, checks a lot of those boxes. It's gonna be a huge project for us. And we've started the first steps, so we're pretty excited about that. But also trying to brace for the amount of work it's gonna take to make sure as they dive into our policies and procedures that, you know, they're finding holes that we're addressing those as we go.
Aside from like shoring up, operational deficiencies and helping you guys streamline, does that have other benefits like reducing insurance costs or anything like that, or is it just kinda to help you guys like tighten up the ship?
There's that potential, I haven't looked into it, but I think it's worth exploring to see if that does reduce insurance, so
Okay.
we could look into that. All right, the big thing is reducing crime. This one's difficult. It's something at first light, we need to figure out what our crime levels are in our community. That's, you know, I was just listening to a podcast about nationwide, what the true crime rate is versus what's reported, and there's some sad numbers. And so I know it's not just in our community, but I just don't feel like everything's being reported, so how do we really know what to address, how to address it if we don't know what's happening? So early efforts were to try to gain some more trust, so we can take those calls for service, but part of the trust factor is to make sure that things are done. We're just one piece of this criminal justice system. It's an important factor, and there's other parts of this, so we're doing what we can do to address what we have to deal with. But one of the tools we have now currently is the problem-solving court, the 5th Judicial District. So I do attend those the sobriety court, and so what they take is a treatment approach versus just jail time. So it's an option people have for treatment. So it's been interesting to go to those. We've seen some success, we've seen some failure. So to me, it's an effective tool, but not for everything. And so we have to look at all our different options. That's been the biggest thing that I've put some extra time and effort towards, but really it's just trying to figure out what baseline is, and so we can use the appropriate tools to address that.
Keith, what kind of data collection are you doing to be able to establish what baseline is and what trends are locally?
Yeah, we had some good data points with our last software system because we understood it really well. So this past year, we're still learning how to use that system, but we're doing data collection. So the softwares that we use to dispatch for all calls, it's all tracked. We organize it by the type of call, and there's certain reportings that we have to do through the state and through the FBI so we can collect this information. So there's some nationwide numbers we can use, but locally is more important for us. A little delay on figuring out exactly what's going on because of this change in the software, but however, we do have some decent historic numbers that we can look at. And the more familiar we become with these programs, the more we can identify like hot zones even, and time frames and days. So we do have some of those early stats. I'm not completely comfortable with navigating through all of them to really get us some good information because it's challenging to pull all that information out. So it's been great having an additional members to our administrative staff because they're really the ones diving through those. We do make that part of our weekly meeting when we meet up with all the other supervisors, as we can talk about different numbers of what's going on, patrol and detention. And so we're learning to become more familiar with those. So they are captured. We're learning how to read them. We're learning how to pull reports, and to try to get good information because really it is tough. Here's a perfect example: is let's say we get a traffic complaint about somebody speeding on Highway 91 at mile 0.8. So we can use that stat to say, okay, we had a speeder at mile 0.8 on Highway 91. And then we pull that person over and it turns out to be a drunk driver. And so now we process this as a drunk driver. Then the drunk driver turns into an arrest.
Right.
So now we have this one individual call that represents multiple different stats.
Yeah.
And for us to pull good stats, we gotta figure out like how do we, I can't jump into 12,000 calls and do that individually, so we do have to trust the software and the reports that are available to us. So we're really trying to learn. So we do have, again, some good initial numbers, but the more we dig into it, the more we find that there is additional information to find to really help us in our policing efforts.
How about in terms of communication? I guess that one of the things that I'd be really interested in is, yes, you're just one part of the justice system.
Yeah.
So in order for us to understand prevention and help you get the funding you need to do that, it takes more than just you.
Yeah.
Right? So in order to be able to communicate out to the community, these are the trends we're seeing, these are the places that things aren't, maybe not that, but the trends, right? You're the one who's collecting the data. I would love to see more, happy to help fund.
Yep. Okay.
Getting this data that could be used by the whole community. I love that you already collect it, I love that you use it, I love that you put it in the context of the nation, but it's gonna take all of us to help reduce crime. So if there are ways that you can be collecting data that helps communicate to everyone how we can better support each other, I would love to see that coming out of the sheriff's department.
Got it. I think it's a great idea, and I think it would help the bigger picture,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I think once I feel a little more comfortable with what those actual numbers are, I think that's easy to start producing some generalized reports
Yeah.
that we can, share that information, with the community, with the courts, with anybody who wants to.
I mean, we talk about drug use, we talk about domestic violence, and really the people who are collecting that data are very few. And even being able to correlate those two data points against each other would help everybody understand what an issue is. So that when we put funding towards trying to help those services, people understand why.
Yeah, there's always the human factor, of course, so not all the answers are in the numbers, but a
Of course
big part of the answer is definitely the numbers.
Yeah.
And we can start getting better at pulling those and sharing those.
Awesome.
It's a challenging situation too, because as soon as you figure out how to be proficient at one method of collecting data, just technological advances and changes in the tools. I was looking at this with the school district a while ago, like how do you guys even keep up with how fast things are changing like every day? It's hard to wrap your head around.
It is.
If I keep getting emails from a camera / tracking company, I know there's been some communities, I personally wouldn't be for it, but curious what you think about that.
Camera systems?
Yeah, but it's more than that, it's like a complete tracking of the whole community.
Like facial recognition and stuff,
Like
or
Batman and
traffic?
stuff?
Do you know what I'm talking about, right?
Kind of, I don't think it's as in-depth of what you're explaining, but I can talk about, the flock camera system.
Exactly, the flock cameras.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's more for vehicle tracking, so we can place them at different entry points into the county on our highways. And this is hugely beneficial to, so I don't wanna speak too much on, it's still an ongoing case, but we did find a suspect in Kansas using the flock camera. We were able to get this, the entire family associated with the victim was terrified. We were able to get him in custody because of the flock cameras. So there's definitely some like really good benefit to it. And yeah, they're pushing hard. I've noticed some private companies are using them now. I believe Walmart at different locations is incorporating these cameras, and it is recognition stuff. So like they can read a license plate and say, oh, that's associated with a murder that happened in Arkansas. And
Oh, Jesus, yeah, that's complicated, huh?
Chafee does, correct?
We don't, we
Yeah,
have
we do not,
because we keep contacting them.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, I mean, it's a tricky situation.
Right.
It's morally complicated for sure.
Yeah, you get into surveillance state conversation and, the benefits and the negative perceptions are really, like you guys said, it's complicated.
It's like Minority Report.
We would have to approve something like that, the three of us, right? No one could just come and stop it.
I don't have that answer. I think it depends on where it's placed. So if
State wanted to put them on.
if CDOT wanted to go throw them on the highways, I don't think that's your approval. Or if a private business decides to engage in a contract with Flock, I don't think that's your approval.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not deep enough into that conversation to know a lot of those answers.
Yeah, it's just an example of the changing technology and where we're at.
So
Heath,
then-
do you have 14 slides?
No,
Okay,
Everybody.
this is everybody, great, just double checking, I didn't wanna
I know, I'm.
shortchange you.
Okay, yeah, I'm a little over, but it's the last
okay.
item, this is the last item for me. And this one's just a little bit of a change that needs to happen, the community justice coordinator, that position's not here, it was initially started too with the community justice center project, so this one's, but it's still worth talking about, you know, just our efforts, that we're all involved in with the renovation project here. Because there's a huge touch point on just the flow of this building, how the public has access to it, and incorporating the justice system into movement of personnel through this building so everybody's a little safer. So still kind of continuing that conversation, it's just a little different. Now. So that is my last slide, we don't have to do 10 more.
Alright.
We do.
You guys do.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Nothing further from me, I got my questions out as we were going along there.
Thank you, Heath.
Yeah, thanks,
Appreciate everyone's time.
sounds promising and challenging.
Sorry, I have one question, just cause we talked about it earlier. I really appreciate how much work you've done with Candace and with the finance team. It's, you know, it's been huge. I know you hung out last night, so I just huge kudos to the amount of work that you've done and how you've leaned into being an elected official who really tries to work with us and our systems. Just, number one, I'm really grateful.
Absolutely, we're one county.
Yeah. The other question I have though is when it comes to revenues and like, let's use Highway 91. The amount of dangerous drivers that are out there and speeding. I know you know this from being a state trooper, I know you know it from being a community member and a sheriff. But we were talking maybe yesterday only about how many speeding tickets somebody could be writing out there every day and generating income and reducing the danger. Just wondering, since we're talking about budget, where you think that like role of revenue and safety kind of like falls for you?
Yeah, it's, so we've put a lot of effort into redoing the county model traffic code, which will be, you know, need your approval to get those into place. So it is a project, and we'll continue conversation with them on getting that built out. We're just modeling as it should be, modeling the state code. So the last one that was in place was really outdated and kind of just didn't model the state too well, so we're trying to replicate that. So it's a project that's underway right now. And then, yeah, we do wanna identify those areas. A big thing really too is just our staffing levels and the time commitment for that. But thankfully with our background with the state patrols, we do have a good relationship with them, and we can, you know, when we have a little better staffing levels, we can go and identify these different areas, use methods that the state has used in the past and has proven to help identify problem areas. So we do have that relationship, we do have that knowledge. They're struggling, I would say, in our area with staffing more than we are.
Okay.
So the presence factor is hard to answer without just like physically more people here.
Totally.
It's definitely on my priority list though.
Okay.
Because I do know presence and that enforcement aspect does slow people down.
Yeah, it does.
And we've even seen it slow people down, you know, for some time after some heavy efforts. And they're like, oh yeah, last month they've been here, so then another month or two, and then we have to kind of go back and readdress the problem as it grows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been here, I came here in 2016 as a trooper, and Highway 91 has been a problem for 9 years. And I'm sure it dates back even further than that.
It's been bad since the 90s, you know, or when I moved here, I'm sure it was bad before then, but what's crazy is, you know, seeing firsthand, I've always commuted over the hill until the last like 5 years or so, and we all drove such crappy cars back then, that it wasn't like that big of a deal, and now it's like, even everyone's crappy car is so fast, and they're so built different that you don't feel how fast you're driving. And then you add in the distractions, and it's just like in the last 10 years, 12, 13 years maybe, it's gotten so much different with the comfortable speeds are now instead of 55, it's 75, and the attention deficit through distractions is through the roof. It's really crazy how just driving in general has changed, but you see it on 91.
It's true, and I'll give a shout out to the State Patrol, one of our local troopers here, Trooper Briggs, has made a great presence in their school, like just recently this week, he brings the crash car out there. He does some distance stuff with these kids, saying, you know, if you're going 65 miles an hour, here's how much distance you cover in 1 second.
Yeah.
And imagine if you just look down at your phone for 1 second, how much ground you covered.
Yeah.
And so I hope he's making an impact, I'm sure he is, but he's been very present in Lake County, even though he's, you know, a trooper in other counties, so good, again, good partnership with the, staffing for them.
Yeah.
We're doing what we can, I think we can always do better, of course, too, so we'll keep trying to address those traffic concerns.
I think, just in this conversation, I was also trying to bring it up as a budget revenue driver as well. So I totally hear the staffing concerns, if there are ways to get cameras that generate tickets or whatever, like, I think that also, cool, if, just, we wanna be partners with you in
Okay.
funding, trying to manage revenue and safety.
Okay. It's a
Tricks
two
like
for
that.
one,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that Highway 91 is one of our
It is.
clearer dangers. So yeah, if that also means us talking to the state to get CDOT to come do studies out there, I think that we have other avenues that we could help
Okay,
with that.
great. Yeah, it'd be great to get help on that, so yeah, I'll
Yeah,
let you know.
let's chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. Alright, appreciate
Yeah.
everyone's time.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yay.
Thanks for the hard work.
Thank you too.